Welcome to the Stop Over Drinking and Start Living podcast, where high-achieving, goal-oriented rebel women come to learn how to live a vibrant and fulfilling life without requiring alcohol to get through it. No labels, no judgments, no saying you'll never drink again. Just real proven methods to help you stop rebelling against yourself with alcohol so you can drink less and do more. I'm your host, Angela Mascenik. Let's dig in. Welcome to episode 96, 1 year later, with client Amy. Hello, hello, hello. Well, I have a very special treat for y'all today. You guys might have remembered Amy, my client Amy, who came on the podcast about a year ago, maybe a little bit longer. And we talked about her success in the program and how she's had such amazing changes and like huge weight loss and stopped over drinking. And it was just amazing. So Amy had a great idea, I think, on that podcast that she wanted to come on again a year later to update everybody to see where she was. Well, we did that yesterday, and it was a super fun interview. We got caught up. Amy shared her daily mantras and what she does on a daily basis to maintain a 56-pound weight loss and stopping over drinking permanently. It was a great conversation. I hope you feel inspired by this talk that I had with Amy. And if you'd like to join me in my Stop Over Drinking and Start Living program so you can have results like Amy, click the show notes in this podcast episode and get your applications in, because we are filling up for the rest of 2020 right now. And my guess is that we will be full by early November. So get your applications in, read through all the information, and apply to join me. Also, we are celebrating the podcast in a huge way because we are approaching 100 episodes of Stop Over Drinking and Start Living. And I want to celebrate you all and your dedication and the growth and success that so many of you had just by listening to the podcast. So I am hosting a 100th episode podcast party. It's going to be a virtual event held over Zoom. I'm super excited about it. I'm going to have some fun prizes, some book giveaways, a private session with me giveaway. There's going to be a link in the show notes here to sign up for the podcast party. It's going to be on Monday, November 23rd at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So click through, sign up for that, and come and have some fun and celebrate the 100th episode of Stop Over Drinking and Start Living. And you're going to see me record that podcast live to you guys, which is super fun to witness. Also, leading up to that podcast, that 100th episode, I want to reward my listeners. So I am having a iTunes review contest. All right, I'm going to put all of the instructions on how to do it in the show notes here. But basically, you go to iTunes, you subscribe to the podcast, then you rate it. You give me a 5-star review, only if you believe I deserve it, and then drop me a review in the comment there, and then send me an email with the topic of your review so I can go review it. And then I'm going to enter you to win one of 3 $100 Amazon gift cards. And we're going to be doing that every week until our 100th episode. All right, so get your iTunes reviews up there. The more reviews I get on iTunes, the more people that can find my podcast. It increases the ratings, and the more people that can get the help that you guys are all experiencing. So do it, and I appreciate it so much. So get your reviews in, enter to win the contest, sign up for the podcast party on November 23rd. I am also having a coffee chat this Friday, the 30th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. The link to sign up for that is also in the show notes. So lots of fun things coming this fall. And I just want to celebrate you. Thank you so much for being here. And I hope you enjoy today's episode with Amy. Thanks so much, Amy. Hello, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have Amy here today. Amy, you guys, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, Amy was on, I don't know, how long has it been? Has it been a year since you've been on the podcast, or almost?
Almost a year.
So I think it was like in February or something of 2020 when you came on. I don't know. It's been a while.
I have no idea.
Was it the year before?
It's a blur. I have no idea.
It's been a while. Anyway, so Amy was on after she finished up private coaching with me when I was still taking one-on-one clients, and she shared her experience and her results that she had. And she had a great idea then to come back a year later to talk about like what it looks like a year after coaching or long-term success of this kind of work. So I thought it'd be fun to have Amy back on the podcast to talk about all the amazing things and like see, kind of check in where she is. So welcome back, Amy.
Well, thank you. It's pretty amazing you remembered that and that it's coming up on that year, November 1st. So I'm
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah. So, just if people haven't listened to your original podcast interview, why don't you just give us a little background about you and sort of where you were when you found the podcast and when you signed up with coaching, like what was going on with you then, and then kind of get us caught up here.
Sure. So back before coaching, boy, I was overeating and over drinking. Every time I drank, I was over drinking. Every time I ate, it was too much of it. And I just didn't know how to stop. And I would get on these kicks where I would be exercising, I'd be eating right, I'd be not overeating, and I would lose the weight. And once I got to that goal, it was like, yes, I reached my goal. And then it was it. I would celebrate because I've reached the goal, and then all of a sudden I'm putting the weight back on. And every time I put the weight back on, it was, you know, put the weight back on plus 10 or plus
Mhm.
5 or whatever. So anyway, I was overweight and I was over drinking. And obviously those two go hand in hand. So I don't know. I was tired of it. I was really, really tired of it. And I'd wake up in the morning and I would just say, okay, I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink tonight, or I'm not going to drink this week. And, that would be out the window by 5 o'clock. And, it just, drinking took up way too much of my brain space. And for a while there, I'm like, okay, I would look around, I would notice like what other people were drinking. I'm like, okay, I'm pretty on par with everybody. And then,
Mhm.
then I noticed, oh, I'm drinking a little bit more than everybody. And
Mhm.
I'm just thinking about it too much. And it would be like, okay, we're going to go out. Who's going to drive? All right, we can just Uber. And I was just tired of it. It was consuming me. So I think I saw your ad on Facebook and reached out, and, it kind of, I was back and forth about it. Like, do I want to invest in myself? I don't know. Is there other things I can do? You put out enough free content where it kind of gives you a nice taste of it. But
Mhm.
until I signed up and like got the coaching for, it to open up things about myself that I wasn't realizing,
Mhm.
you know, that's what really, really did it for me.
Mhm. Yeah, it's just like having somebody else see some obstacles that it's really hard to see yourself, right? That's just
Yes.
normal.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So then you signed up for coaching and you went through that and you just like did all the things, right? Like you pretty much started having results right away. So like
Yeah.
tell us about those results that you had.
Sure. I was fully invested from day one. It was, I was absolutely all in. There was nothing that was going to derail me.
Mhm.
And I would look forward to feeling uncomfortable. And just really feeling those feelings and journaling and just doing everything that I was supposed to be doing. And really the results were, um, number one, the weight loss started happening very quickly.
Mhm.
Just learning those tricks about like, eating when you're at a -2 and stopping when you're at a +2, like all
Mhm.
those things, and realizing like I ate all the time in fear of being hungry. And then
Mhm.
learning that it's okay to be hungry. You're not going to die. Like all those little tricks that you
Yeah.
just tell yourself, and you can just move on about your day without eating or without buffering.
Mhm.
So, so yeah, I did that. What was the question?
No, it's just about some of your results. So you
Oh,
once you
right,
got
yeah,
the coaching, you invested in yourself. I love that you said that you wanted to feel uncomfortable, like you found reasons or
yes,
ways to be uncomfortable, which is what I
yes,
say, right? Like the more willing you are to be uncomfortable, the faster you'll get
yeah.
results.
Like
And like,
I would go to a party, and a party that like if I wasn't gonna drink, why would I go? And I
right.
would go to these parties and be like, I'm gonna only have one drink,
Yeah.
or you know what, I'm not gonna have any drinks. And
Hmm.
like those are the things that like really catapulted me to like the next level, because you know I'm not saying it wasn't hard, like it was
Mm-hmm.
really hard. And then like, because you're not only dealing with your own head, you're also dealing with people asking you, like,
Yeah.
why aren't you drinking? Like, what's wrong with you? Or
Mm-hmm.
people looking at you like, oh, I wonder if she's an alcoholic, or,
Mm-hmm.
she's quitting, or, everybody has their own thoughts about you. And so you're dealing with that. You're dealing with your own everything going on with yourself. And, at times it just feels like you know, it's not worth it, or it's not going to happen for you. And then all of a sudden it's like this little flip is switched and you're like, okay, I'm doing it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Getting for me too, with like getting few of those few social situations in the beginning and like being willing, like knowing the purpose of the uncomfortableness is like it
Yeah.
just increases your capacity to do bigger things, right? So like when you're
Mm-hmm.
willing to feel uncomfortable in those types of situations, you're like, okay, I did that. What else can I do? And then you take it a little bit further to the next time, or a little bit further. You start doing other things that you probably wouldn't have felt comfortable doing or too scared to do, or maybe it's just going out for dinner without having a glass of wine, or going on a trip
Mm-hmm.
without drinking, or saying I'll just have one where like normally it would be 10, like just
Mm-hmm.
stretching yourself. When you can rip that band-aid a lot in the beginning to be uncomfortable, it just sets you up to have more confidence in the future to try different things about it, right?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's awesome. I mean, I think that's very similar to what it was in my journey as well. You were definitely invested. You were willing to be uncomfortable. You showed up, you did all the work. So I think you had success because of that. Right. And I
Mm-hmm.
think too, like I'm noticing in some of my clients now, it's like they believe me and they understand, like they get that I've been there, and they know that a lot of my clients have great results, but then they kind of want to argue.
Yeah,
And I
I
just want to
know.
say, like, just do what I'm telling you to do. And if you do that, like it will work, right?
Right. It's so true. I remember one time you were talking about, I was so concerned about like this one person.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, no, you don't understand. Like, if I'm not drinking with them, like, there's no way that I'll have fun, or this will be a good time. Like, she's just going to be awful. And so, well, and what you had said was, well, how do you want it to go? And I was like, well, that's an odd way of looking at it. Okay. Well, I thinking I really don't have control over that.
Mhm.
So I did some writing and I wrote out my entire day of like how I wanted it to go. And I was, I go do the event and I'm there and I'm like, this is fantastic. I'm having the exact time that I wrote about. It's like, this is how I wanted it to go and this is how it's going. And that it was a moment for me. It was like, okay, another moment of I can do this.
Yeah, I think it's so like a lot of times we think, oh, like especially like if we use the example of, say you're just starting out and you're planning your drinks in advance, like I recommend,
Hmm.
and there's like a Friday night dinner, right? Or a social event. And people are thinking about that event in advance. And they're like, oh my God, it's going to suck. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. We'll have to see what it's like when I get there. All these typical
Hmm.
thoughts we have. I'm like, you guys get to decide what that experience is like. You
Right.
don't have to wait and
That was so
wonder what's going to
surprising for me.
happen. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like you get to decide what that's like. Don't just wing it and be like, it's going to suck, or I wonder if it's going to suck. Like,
Right.
start thinking about the experience that you want to have now, and program that experience in your brain so that when you get there, that's the experience that you get to have.
Hmm.
This is the
Yep.
beauty. I just love the magic of learning how to manage your mind, right? Like, and thinking about things in an intentional way and telling your brain what to think is the
Right.
game changer.
Right. It's the work. It's
Yeah.
what you're doing to get to your result. And
Yeah.
and I'll tell you, and this probably maybe leads into like your next question, but about the future. Like my future goals are to maintain all of this, which means doing the work every single day. So it's not like, oh, I reached my goal, oh, now I'm done, which is what I
Mhm.
used to do in the past. But now it's like, no, I've reached my goal. So my goal now is health and wellness. Like, that is my goal. And so everything kind of just falls into place, but I write about it every single day.
No, me too. I mean, that's a lot of people ask me, like, who I have the 6 month program now. So they're like, do I still need to plan our drinks after 6 months, or do we get to a point where we're just that person that has one or two? I'm like, if it's working for you
Right.
and you've gotten there, why on earth would you stop?
Right. Yeah.
It's just like, yes, it would be easier not to sit down and take 10 minutes and write out your drink plan for the week.
Hmm.
Sure. But like, if try it and see what happens. I'm guessing like if we're making decisions to drink in the moment, that
Yep.
it's gonna creep back in, right? So like
Yep.
if you've been successful,
Guilty. Been there. Yep.
yeah, have
Yep.
you?
It's happened. Oh yeah. Yep.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So it's like you get to a point where it's like, all right, I'm good. I got this on lock.
Mhm.
Like I'm all set. So then, you kind of go back into your, I don't want to say go back into your old habits because, I certainly was never back to where I was by any
Yeah.
means. But, you're in the moment and like, oh, well, I didn't really plan on it, but you know what? I'm good now. So yeah, give me I'll have one, I'll have two. And then
Mhm.
it's like, all right, well, maybe one more or maybe one more, and
Mhm.
it, it puts you instantly back to like, no, this is not what I want to do. Like you just in that moment, that little failure is like, okay, it just reminds you of what you don't want to be. And so,
Yeah, yeah, it's just like it's like not being intentional, right? So it's like when you
right.
are making those kind of decisions in the moment based on how you feel, right? That's exactly what got us here in the first place, is like
Mm-hmm.
deciding to drink or to eat or something like that based on in the moment decisions, which is always fueled by our emotions, right?
Yep.
And so
Yep.
like the whole like big picture of this to take back control and to own your power in your relationship with food and alcohol is learning how to engage with your brain in an intentional way and learning how to manage your brain in an intentional way, not being at the effect of those primitive urges and desires. So
Mm-hmm.
that never goes away. Like your brain is always going to be like, oh, this would be fun. Oh, this sounds good. Ooh, let's do that. Right.
It's
Like that's,
easier. Yeah.
yeah, it's just easier. And that's so just knowing that it's not like a battle or anything, but just in how the brain functions, that you're always going to be asked to make those decisions in the moment. But like I think when you've gotten to where you are now, you've played with both sides of it, right? And like
Mm-hmm.
by planning, by doing your journaling and working on your mind and doing self-coaching, you can see the benefit of that, right? It
Yeah.
sets you
Oh, absolutely.
up for success.
The planning is, it really is key. It really is key. Yep.
Yeah. So tell me about you went through the 8 weeks with me and then you continued working on your own. So tell me why, like, into this point, like why do you think you've been successful? You're a year out now after losing, getting
Mm-hmm.
to your goal, right?
Yeah. So I think I signed up with you in May and then did the 8-week program. And then by November I had lost, I was basically, what I did was, you know, I wasn't intentionally trying to lose weight. I was just following the program and I wanted my body to be where my body was comfortable being.
Mm-hmm.
And so I reached 56 pounds down, and that just seems to be where my body wants to be. And so once I reached that, I have now maintained it for a year in 1 week. It will be 1 year. Um, so what was the question? I'll keep asking you that.
What do you think? What do you think has attributed to that success of maintaining it, a 56-pound weight loss, which is huge, by the way. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank
For a
you.
year. Like, what do you think? Why is that? Why has it been successful for you?
It's really just been the daily work every day. I would say 98% of the time I journal. And if I don't, it's because I forget or, for whatever reason. But I journal every single day and I write out how I want my day to go. I write out what I'm grateful for. I try to figure out what thoughts are not serving me. And by doing that, I've uncovered things that we didn't even uncover in those 8 weeks. I had a thought about myself that I didn't even realize that was so deep seated down in me, and that it was part of like my everyday life. And it was my normal. So I didn't realize it until I really started to notice patterns. And the thought was that I was unimportant.
Yeah.
And so I've only realized this in the last like 4 months. So
Mhm.
I've really been now focusing on that. And, I can look at relationships in my life that have suffered, or when I get offended by something, it's usually because that person's, I'm air quoting here, but like making me feel unimportant. And, so I'm able to do the work to say, okay, no, 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 this is my own issue. This is not what they said to me. This is
Mhm.
because I'm feeling unimportant. that's the reason I'm feeling this way.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, that was really great to uncover.
Yeah, so like the benefit of doing the ongoing journaling, the ongoing thought management is that you're always sort of like uncovering old thoughts in there, or even like if you have a problem that pops up, you're able to see the thoughts that are causing the biggest issues, and you can prevent a lot of shit happening by
Hmm.
managing your mind, right? And you get to find these old shitty thoughts that you've probably had since you were a kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. What else do you do? Like talk about like the actions that you take on a regular basis that help you maintain.
I work out and I don't make excuses for myself to not work out. Even when, I woke up on Saturday, I'd worked a really long week the week before. And because of Corona, I've been out of work for a while. So working a full week was, took lot out of me. So
Mhm.
I woke up on Saturday and I'm like, I could sleep in today. And I'm like, you know what? I made a commitment. I'm going to go. And it doesn't mean I have to work out at 1,000%. It just means I can do what I can do. And so I went and I did it. And it wasn't the best workout I ever had in my life, but I was so happy that I went. And, I felt good for the rest of the day. I wasn't overtired and everything, which I probably would have been if I had laid in bed and not done anything. Um, so
So
what
it's
else
like
do I?
little things like that is just like when
Yeah.
you say you're going to do something, you do it, right? So your
Yes.
muscle and honoring your commitments is pretty strong.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely do that. And I remember, so when we all shut down for, excuse me, for Corona, um, I am like, my gym shut down. My trainer at the gym was, obviously unable to do that. And
Mhm.
so I'm like, I am not letting this get me down. No way. I've lost the weight for 6 months. This is not going to do me in. Absolutely not. So, I had my moment to like, okay, let's work through this. You're feeling sorry for yourself. You're bored. You're lonely. You're stuck home with your kid. And okay, work through that. Now it's time to like kick it into high gear. So I made a gym in my basement, and my basement is a basement. It's not like, not a finished basement by any
Yeah.
means. I'm like constantly moving my husband's tools aside to fit my computer on his workbench. And I have a little yoga mat and no weights, and I just do it. And so you know, I wasn't going to let it get me down. And I haven't. I've maintained the weight. And, people see me now and they're like, oh, you didn't put on your, what, COVID-19 or, and I'm like, no. And I just tell people if I can get through this, I can get through anything.
Yes. Love that.
Yeah.
So besides exercising, what did you talk to me about like your relationship with food and alcohol and the way you maintain that now? So when your brain is like, or you go to a party and it's like, oh, I could just have this one thing, or tell me like your daily sort of mantra to keep you in this maintenance area that you are.
A lot of it is realizing why I'm hungry. So when
Mm,
I'm at a party, I'm feeling snacky. I'm
mm,
like, am I hungry? No, I'm not hungry. It's almost like you need to do something with your hands or something. And for me, it's like a little social awkwardness
mm.
and or social anxiety. And, it's for me, it's like it was something to do. And so that I just have really tried to cut out. And
So
just
like
just
in those
being so
moments,
aware.
what does your brain say? Like, are you like, ooh, it sound I could have a bite of that?
In the moment when I'm, looking at the sea of food or something, it's really I, I don't need it. That's not going to bring me to my goal of health and wellness. and
Mm,
and really I always keep that goal in the back of my head is
mm,
and again I write about that every single day. Like my goal is health and wellness, and that is all things surrounding that.
mhm.
So yeah, in the moment, it's just looking at the stuff, going, I don't need that, or there's a healthy option, and that was part of my, plan today was to be at the party, and if there is a healthy option to have a little snack, make yourself one plate of that, and
Mhm.
when you're done, and feel satisfied, because that's the other part of it is that when I would just eat the little snackies that were on the healthier side,
Mhm.
I'd be done and I'd be looking around like, oh, everyone else is eating cake, everyone else is doing this or that. um and that feeling of deprivation would
Yeah.
like kill me. And then if I really let that get to me, then I would just go ahead and indulge times 10. It would be like almost even worse than what I normally would have done because
Yeah.
I was feeling deprived.
Yeah.
So I really did a lot of work on, and I do a lot of work before a party or before, um, I know where there's going to be snacks around or something,
Mhm.
to do the work and to just tell myself, like, I won't feel deprived. Like, I'm going to feel satisfied after I'm done eating those things because food is just nourishment. That's all it is. So if you're eating crap, you're not being nourished. And that doesn't get you to your health and wellness goals. So,
Mhm. I love it. Yeah, the whole deprivation thing is all about not that you're not eating it. It's what you're thinking about not eating it that causes the
yes.
deprivation, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So knowing
Because
that,
my husband doesn't feel that way when he doesn't eat that.
yeah,
When he doesn't eat garbage, he doesn't feel deprived by any
yeah,
means.
yeah.
So,
Fascinating, right?
yeah.
We like again going back to like the idea of like the experience when you're talking about your friend, like you are not going to have fun if you're not going to be drinking, right?
Hmm.
It's like we think it's just an automatic that we're going to feel deprived if we're not eating and drinking all the shit. Like I
Right.
don't, and so when we think that way, like I don't want to feel deprived, then like before we even are in the deprivation,
Yeah.
we're already planning to like over drink or overeat, right? So like
Yeah.
a lot of times when my clients are putting their drink plan together, on like a Friday night, they're like, oh, it's going to be, I don't want to feel deprived at the party. I'm going to put 4 drinks on there. I'm like,
Yeah.
you get to choose
Yeah.
if you are going to feel deprived or not. Like that doesn't have to automatically happen to you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Very
Yes,
true.
so good. I love that point. So basically what you're doing to maintain is you're journaling, you're managing your mind, you're telling yourself the experience that you want to have before big social events. But tell me more like about the day-to-day shit. Like because the day-to-day decisions about
You're
whether it's
right.
this little bat like we call it grab assy, right? Grab
Yep.
assy bites of this while you're cooking, or for me, it's like the grab assy bites after I've done eating and I'm cleaning things up, like this tastes so good, like those little moments are actually
Yeah.
what has the biggest impact of our long-term goals. So tell me about your daily kind of thought process about that stuff.
I'm trying to think of, I don't know. It's like, I guess a lot of times when it becomes your normal, you don't think about it. But
Mhm.
even, I mean,
So I'll tell you a story and then maybe you can
yeah.
you can think about it. So it was my daughter's birthday this past weekend and she
Hmm.
wanted a brownie ice cream cake.
Mm.
And I'm like, I'll make that. It's not a big deal. So I got some brownie mix and I made it in the morning. I think it was Friday morning. And you had to make the cake or the brownie and then it has to cool. And then you thaw out ice cream and then you put the ice cream on top of this thing and then you put it in the freezer. Okay. So there's like a
Hmm.
multiple step process. So I had planned on my food plan to have the brownies, like the brownie cake that night with the birthday celebration. But what I forgot about the actual act of making the brownies, right? Like I didn't even think that I would have urges to eat the fucking brownies,
Yeah.
like the brownie batter. So I'm like, it's Ghirardelli brownie mix. It was like, oh my
Indulgent. Yeah.
smell, the smell of that chocolate. And I'm like, ooh, my brain just lit up, it just lit up with like, oh, you could just have like, you're not living unless you can have a bite of brownie mix on your daughter's birthday. Like there's something wrong with you if you can't do that. I'm like, you're right, brain. Like I was like totally like in it. And I'm like, I'm just gonna have it. And I know that this is my primitive brain and I don't care. And then I was like, I'm like, I could, and this is just me, I've trained my brain to really challenge this type of thinking. But I was in it for a minute, and then I'm like, you could do it, or you could see what just allowing the urge would be like. And I was like, okay, I want to feel the desire for the brownies. Like having desire is a good thing. We need desire in our lives. And I just
Mm.
opened myself up to feeling that urge, and it was like just kind of rolled through me, and it was over. And I ended up not eating. So this is like the example of the day-to-day kind of stuff that comes up and how I work through that in my brain so that I do maintain. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Is that similar to what you do?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of a constant thing where, all day, especially if I'm working from home, if I'm sitting at that computer, I notice myself sitting there, standing up. I'll stand up and start walking around, and in the moment I'm like, I know what you want. I know what you want. You want something to like little snacky just to
Yeah.
while you're sitting there and you're bored with work, you want to go do something else for a second. It's a good distraction. And I will sit there and I'll just say, go ahead, get up and walk around the room, stretch your legs, but that doesn't mean you're hungry,
Mhm.
and just like recognizing in those moments that like, like food is not going to solve your boredom at
Mhm.
all. Like you're going right back to it in a second anyway. Things need to get done. Or yesterday, I was really hungry, but I was cooking.
Mhm.
And and my son wanted s'mores and I forgot to buy graham crackers. And so my we ran to my neighbor's and he actually had a box of graham crackers, so he brought them back. And the first thing I did, I tore it open and I took a bite, and I was like, well, now my dinner's not going to taste as good. If I eat this whole thing, that my dinner's not going to taste as good. And that is actually something, kind of sidebar here, that I've noticed: when you eat when you're hungry, your food tastes so much more delicious. And I don't care what it is, it's like satisfying, it's delicious. But
Yeah.
anyway, so I take this bite of this graham cracker and I'm like, oh no, I really want, we were having steak last night that I had planned for. And I'm like,
Mhm.
no, I really want to enjoy it. So I gave it to my dog. Like I was able to just be like, no, I don't need this. Like I'm looking forward to my meal. We're going to eat in 10 minutes. I don't need this right now.
Yes, that
So
is what I'm talking about. Those little decisions
yeah.
in the moment is the big. So if you think about how many of those little decisions that you make in a
Hmm.
day, right? So like when you're planning your food on a regular basis and then like, you're super conscious of it, as am I, you recognize all those little decisions that where you say no to that kind of
Hmm.
grab assy in the moment type shit. When you look at like where it used to be when before
Oh,
coaching or before this, how many calories, and I hate talking about calories, but that's
I
what
know.
everybody
Yep.
recognizes, right? So when you look at that, that was probably like 1,000 calories or 1,200 calories in little grab ass bitey things that
Hmm.
I would do throughout the day because I was so unaware and so unconscious of it and just at the effect of my primitive brain. But I think you
Yeah.
and I are very similar. Like you're able to recognize it now
Yep.
and interrupt that automatic process with like, no, we can make that decision. Like there's another option here besides just eating the thing or drinking the thing, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
No, totally. And that's something that's gotten much easier for
Mhm.
me, and by not, I know like snacks are, I don't want to say no, but the snacks are not, you don't want to be snacking all the time,
Right.
basically. But I know that if I'm starving and I have to go to work for a couple hours and I'm not going to have a chance to eat, like I know that I'm going to have to pack that little almond
Yeah.
pack for myself so that I don't have that ravenous feeling of like, because at that point I'll be a super hungry, and I
Mhm.
just don't want to get to that point where you feel like you need to overeat to kind of overcompensate for it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I have my little tricks that work for me, and I just plan for them and know that they're going to happen.
Yeah, I think planning for the snacks is a really good. So I've like kind of shifted a little bit about the snacks. Like I generally don't recommend that you plan to have snacks just because you don't want to
Right.
experience hunger. Like all of those little mini meals that we're trained, we're supposed to eat every 2 to 3 hours to maintain your metabolism. Like all that is bullshit, right?
Hmm.
We should only be eating when we're actually hungry and stopping when we're
Hmm.
satisfied.
Which makes so much sense.
Right. Like where our body is programmed to do that naturally. Like we
Right.
don't need to overcomplicate it, right?
Yeah.
But now, like, I like the idea of planning for snacks if you need it, because when you plan for it and you're not in response to the need
Yeah.
for it in the moment, you make better decisions, right? So, like,
I mean,
right.
such better decisions. Yeah.
It's just like I can plan to have like a cheese stick or a handful of almonds or an apple,
Yep.
or I cannot plan for something and hope that I don't get hungry, and then I'm more inclined to go for the potato chips,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know?
Very true.
Love it. Okay, that was really, really good. So I think it's important to see like just the little day-to-day decisions that, people will have. Like once you get here to maintain it, you have to still make those decisions,
Yep. And
have your
you know what
best
I
interest.
think also is always be open to like learning new things and new ways of thinking, and I think that's also part of it. And like I still take your free classes that you offer
Yeah.
because I already know what to do, but just
Mhm.
being surrounded by people who are or were in the same boat as you, and just
Mhm.
having like-minded people around you it's just smart. It's just, it feels good. And
Yes.
to know you can be vulnerable and to
Mhm.
bounce an idea off of somebody is really great. So like learning new things and, I'm reading. I'm not a big reader. I've never
Mhm.
liked it, but I'm just reading these books and just learning. And my best friend actually signed up for scholars, and
Mhm.
her and I are on the phone constantly talking about all this stuff. She had a totally different issue, so she went another avenue,
Mhm.
but it's the same thing, and it's
It's so fun to be able to talk about this
yes,
stuff with people that get it, right? So like
yes,
I love that you said take the free classes, do all the things,
mm-hmm,
immerse yourself in this shit. So that's like I have two very close friends that have now like in my local area that like one of them joined another coaching program and then now one of them works for one of the Corinne Crabtree from Fit and Fat.
oh
One of
cool,
my really good friends works for her and like
nice,
supports her on her team and they've changed their lives. It's like and
mm-hmm.
the three of us geeking out to that. And then there's another friend that joined the life coach school and is getting her coach certification, like all
Wow,
within the local area. And it's just like to have those conversations with those girls now is like compared to what we would talk about 3
right,
years
it's so
ago,
much
it's
more
like,
meaningful.
oh my gosh, my relationships, that's a big question that I get asked a lot is like, how have your relationships changed? Have you lost your friends? I'm like, no, I've influenced my friends. Like
Yeah,
my friends, like they are inspired by this and they've changed their lives too. Like it has an impact in my husband, like all of it, my kids, my relationships, my parents, like the positive impact of this work in other people's lives just from the things that I've done is profound.
and that's something that I had no idea going in. Like when I went into this, I was like totally focused on just stopping over drinking, and then we started talking about self-love, and I'm like, what? Like, no, 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 it's the drinking that's the problem, like not the self-love. Like what
Uh-huh.
even is that? So yeah, I didn't realize it would just be all encompassing and really kind of talk to every aspect of your life.
Yes, yeah. That's awesome. So that's actually what I wanted to talk about next because it's been so prevalent in my coaching group right now. There are people like a lot of people just joined and are joining right now, and there's a whole month in the program on self-love. And I think with the private coaching too, I had a special section on loving
Hmm.
yourself, right?
Yep, yep,
And a lot of people think when they first hear that term or they feel like it could be like a buzzy sort of trendy, like, ooh, love yourself and pamper yourself and all this stuff. And it's like, so not like that, right? It's
no,
like, it's hard and it's
hmm,
painful sometimes to do that. It's not spa treatments and go getting pedicures. You know what I mean? It's like
right,
deep diving into what you think about yourself and uncovering some really shitty things that
yeah,
you've been saying and having beliefs about yourself that we need to bring to the surface so that we can change those thoughts to feel good about ourselves when we do this work.
right,
So one of the biggest things is like when people want to lose weight, they think their initial drive to lose the weight is because they're disgusted with themselves and they feel
right.
frustrated with the weight that they've gained over the years or whatever it is. And so that feeling that they have about themselves and their weight drives the action to want to do something with it, right?
Yeah,
That's fine in the beginning. Like get on board with it, right? If you're feeling
right.
frustrated with how much you're weighing or you can't fit into your clothes, by all means do something about it. But at some point, we got to shift to loving yourself where you are and accepting yourself and uncovering why you got here in the first place by how you think about yourself so that you can feel better about yourself to have those long-term
It's
changes.
so true. If you're not loving yourself the way you are right now, doesn't matter if you take off 100 pounds
Yep.
or 10 pounds, it doesn't matter because those same feelings are still gonna be there once
Yeah.
you've unpeeled or, shed those pounds.
Yes.
So,
So can we talk
mm,
about that a little bit? Like, tell me about when you first started this and sort of uncovering your own thoughts and unveiling some of the things that were in your brain. Did you find
yeah.
any like deep, dark thoughts that you knew that like were holding you back or?
Yeah, I mean, I know I've always been a little insecure, and I've been, and I was a people pleaser, and like I knew all of that stuff. I didn't know kind of how deep seated it was and how
Mhm.
it affected, so many different parts of my life. But Yeah, I guess you get to a point where you just realize like it's not helping me. That
Mm.
those thoughts just don't help yourself. And so really just being like, okay, I'm going to go into the situation. I'm going to I'm going to force myself to love myself and do the work in order to do that. And you know, everything did fall into place for me. And so by the time that I did lose the weight, I, can look in the mirror and be proud of myself and happy with myself. And those those other feelings I feel like I have worked through,
Mhm.
and the other day, so I was coming up here I am coming up on this year of having lost the weight for a year. And, I put on a couple pounds and I'm looking at the scale because I still weigh myself every day to give
Mhm.
myself a nice gauge of where I'm
Mhm.
at. And I'm looking, I'm like, that's 4 pounds up. Imagine that. Okay, well, and your brain just automatically goes to, oh, what are you doing to yourself? Like, are you going to go back to your old ways? And,
Mhm.
I'm able to just stop myself and go, no, no, no. I don't care if I put on every single pound back. I still love myself. It doesn't matter. Like, or if I look at my body and there's something that, because everybody can look at their body and pick something out that maybe isn't their favorite aspect of their body, but to just look at yourself and just go, this is who I am and I'm okay with it. That's been really helpful for me.
Yeah, and then to actually believe those thoughts too.
Yes,
Huge,
very
right?
true.
And we
And
can
it,
at
it
the
does take
beginning.
time.
Yeah, at the beginning we have these practice like, okay, what is your first thought about yourself when you weigh yourself? You're like, that's unacceptable, is what most people think, or
Mhm.
that's too high, or I can't do this, or you know what I mean? Something like they have a thought about their weight, right?
Mhm.
And then it's a hard jump to be like, I love myself unconditionally, right?
Right.
But you've done the work on your brain to believe that thought now. What is that process like for you? Or what was it like for you?
Um, it's almost like just finding your self-worth and like seeing what you're capable of. And, um, I don't know. It's just, you know, I, one day, like a thought would come up, a positive thought, and it would just be just a very small tweak to it. And just kind of, and I know you have what is it, the ladder?
Yeah.
You know, it would be just tweaking it just a little bit each day to just
Mhm.
try to get myself to the point where I now can say I love myself no matter what I say and what I do. And
Mhm.
and I still have those insecure thoughts every once in a while. But it just coming into this, sitting down and doing this podcast, like I had to write out my you know biggest fear is losing my train of thought. Oh my God, what are people gonna think of me? And my thought I'm like, well, what is my thought about that? Like, okay, so I lose my train of thought. What is something that what's my thought about that? And my thought is, oh my God, what if people think I'm stupid? And so from there, it makes you feel awful. And all that does is make me trip up more. And so I'm like, no, here's my intentional thought. If I lose my train of thought, then guess what? It's meaningless. It's meaningless. It doesn't mean that I'm stupid. It just, it means it's not a big deal and I can recover from it and I can keep on keeping on. And it makes me feel powerful and smart. And
Yeah.
so just doing that work.
I think the to sort of kind of like chunk her up or like wrap it up in a bow. The question is like, how do you move from self-loathing to self-love? And
Hmm.
basically it's thought work, right? Like
Yep.
recognizing the thought that you have originally and then shifting that thought just a little tiny bit and doing the work in your journal, right? And
Hmm.
like managing your mind when you notice these thoughts is okay, it's good to go from like I'm disgusting and I'm working on changing that thought. That's like adding or just adding that little shift. I think I'm disgusting and that's just a thought.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that is what like what we're talking about. Is like you can't go from I'm disgusting to I love myself,
Right.
right? And that's
Yep.
not what you did either, right? You
No.
found those thoughts and you just made a quick little adjustment to it, like, and it's okay. I'm working on changing that, or I know that I can think about this in a different way. I'm open to finding it out. Like
Yep.
some little adjustment that you
Yeah.
that
Small moves. Yep.
yeah.
Small moves that just,
Yep.
get you to where you want to be.
Yeah. And then all of a
Mhm.
sudden, after practicing that and doing the work, like I think this is the biggest part of like when you invest into a program, you invest into yourself too, is like you're actually more inclined to do the work that I'm suggesting. Like every podcast episode I hear, I'm like, do this and this. Probably not a lot of people do that because there's no skin in the game, right? It's just like, oh, it's nice.
Very true.
That makes sense. I resonate with what she's saying. That sounds like it would work. But then the people that do it, without investing are probably very small, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
like you doing this work continually in your journal of like you're recognizing these thoughts that you have in your brain, you're writing them out on a piece of paper, and then you're just making small adjustments to them,
Yep.
especially around the self-love. And you see, because you can see how your current thoughts before the coaching created the result of being overweight and
Hmm.
over drinking. Like you saw how your thinking created that, right?
Yes.
Like
Yep.
once you got inside the program, right?
Yep.
So like you can see now and trust that if you keep thinking negatively about yourself and what you think about yourself, that that's going to get you the similar results that you had, right?
Yep.
This is what I try to tell my clients. It's like you got here by self-loathing. You just didn't know. And that's okay, right?
Yep.
But I can help you see those how those thoughts are creating your results for you right now. And I promise, like, if you can figure out how to at least accept and love yourself, that your results that you want are just waiting for you. Like,
Hmm.
it's almost magical. Like, and people are so scared to do that because they think if they do that, they're letting their gas off the pedal, right? They're like, they're not being hard on themselves, and they're like, well, how am I going to
Right.
change if I like myself and I don't
Right.
want to weigh this? Like, how do I change? Like, can you speak to that at all?
I don't know. I mean, it's like everything you're saying is like, yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
And I don't even know how to add to it. It's like, I know, like getting to that point, like it is a hurdle.
Mhm.
It's a feat because you have to work towards it.
Mhm.
And again, it's something that I still work for and work with every single day,
Yeah.
to maintain that.
Mhm.
So,
I think it's just being open for people that are skeptical of loving yourself and accepting yourself now. Be open to doing it that way because what you've been doing in the
right,
past,
isn't
has
right, not working.
so
Right.
why not be open to trying this way of and guess what? It feels so much better and we have so much fun
It
when we feel good
does.
about ourselves, right? Which then turns into like having longer lasting results, which I think is what you're experiencing right now.
Yeah. Yep. It is. It's an incredible feeling to actually say, you know what? I love myself.
Yeah. So good. And so from that place, like getting on the scale and seeing that you gained 4 pounds, when you're
Hmm.
like, no, I love myself, how do you feel?
I mean, it just makes it like, you're gonna be fine. There's no need. What is beating myself up gonna do for me? I
Yeah.
mean, absolutely nothing positive.
Yeah.
So just saying, you know what, a couple pounds, okay. You have the tools, you know what you need to do, and do it.
Yeah.
And actually, and also I've been doing it. So it's like having those couple extra pounds. Okay, well, maybe it's where my body wants to be for this season. Or, it's not like I'm going up a whole pant size, so I have to,
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
And by the way, it did end up coming off and I'm right back to where I was. So
Yeah.
not a problem. And if I did make it a big deal and, and then it came off and it would be like, oh, okay, well, anyway, that was a waste of time. So,
Yes. Yes. You're not giving away the way you feel to a number on the scale.
right. Yep.
Yeah. You're like, I can choose how I feel, just like going to the party in the future or that experience with your friend. You're like, I get to
Yeah.
decide what I feel about this, right?
Right. Yep.
The scale is not dictating you being happy. And the way it does come off, you probably weren't just like, oh my God, yes, right? Like
No,
you're just like, yep, nothing's
that
changed.
that was exactly what it was this morning. I weighed
Yeah.
myself. I'm like, oh look, there it is. Back at it.
Yeah.
Yep.
There wasn't a big up and down on either end of it, right?
Nope. Nope. Not at all.
It's just like a neutral. Like, yeah, that
Yep.
feels good. Like when you recognize, yep, I know that I'm doing the right things, makes sense. It's
Hmm.
different from like, thank God I that
I know.
off and you know, celebrate by eating some more food.
Right. I know. Well, now my celebration is anytime I want to celebrate something, I go for a run. That's like my reward to myself of like, yay, I met a goal. Okay, go for a run.
Love
That's
it.
my,
Yeah. So good. What was I going to ask you? I don't remember. I'm looking at my notes.
Did you just lose your train of thought?
Oh, the horror. I think about that too. It's like I worry about, I send a lot of emails out and I don't have anybody proofread my stuff and make workbooks and do all the things. And like, there's so many mistakes in that. I'm like, if I worried about that kind of stuff, I would
Right.
never get anything done. Like
Right,
nobody
right.
would ever receive any content from me because I would be so worried that somebody would think I'm not educated enough. I'm not smart.
Right.
Like,
Right.
like who cares? I'm not here as a writer. I'm
Yeah,
here to help
it's
change people's
content.
lives and help
Right.
them stop over drinking and to lose weight. Like if I don't have the right punctuation, there's a misspelling mistake. It doesn't mean I'm not smart enough,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Crazy. But I think that's also what people like about me. Like I'm just real and I let that stuff come through like a real human being would, you
You
know?
do. I love that. And you're relatable and
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Anything else you feel like we should know? I think we covered it. I mean, you got coaching, you changed the way you thought, you learned how to manage your brain, you learned how to be uncomfortable and feel your feelings. You've maintained like the work that you learned how to do, the skills, the
Yeah.
tools that you learned in the coaching.
And
And
now it's fun. It's fun to kind of see like, well, what am I going to do next? Where am I going to go? And like the other things that, I used to like look for things to do so that I couldn't drink. And now I'm doing things because I'm not drinking, and like I am I met up with a friend the other day who I saw on Facebook. She was hiking, like an old friend from high school. And I'm like, hey, if you ever want a partner, I'm a little slow with work. And she's, well, let's go do it. So now we're doing 5 miles, and tomorrow or 2 days, we're going to do, a 6.5 mile one. And it's just fun and different. And I started kayaking and biking and like all these fun things that are like who I am. And I love doing it all. So it's just opened a lot of doors.
yes, I love that. I feel like I have way more fun now than I did
Yeah.
before. I thought
Right.
I was having fun, but it really, like when you really look at it, it's like, it's really not fun to feel like shit in the morning and then have all those thoughts about doing something and then not
Yeah.
following through and then getting caught up in the cycle and,
Yeah.
missing half of your weekend because you're hungover.
Yeah.
That's not fun.
Right.
It's
But
fun to like say,
when,
I'm going to go celebrate with a freaking run and go
yeah,
climbing up a mountain or going kayaking. Like that's way more adventurous, way more
totally.
interesting, way more fulfilling than what it was like before.
Yeah. And right now there's within that private Facebook group
Mhm.
with all the girls that have signed up with you,
Mhm.
um, there's a 14 alcohol free challenge
Yeah.
going on. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, why not? Let's do it. And I had already like just not planned for any drinks the week before. So by the time it's over, it'll be 3 weeks. And it's just like, when you plan to not have any drinks, it's the easiest thing in the world because your brain doesn't even go there. Like, oh, no, we're just not drinking. So what I started doing was, I wrote a little list. So every day that I don't have any alcohol, I write today instead of drinking, and so like I have these little bullet points of like the things that I've done because I wasn't drinking. And I mean, last night I watched a movie until 11:30, which is super late for me. So I was like, well, I would have been sleeping if I had, or trying to sleep if I had a couple
Yeah.
glasses of wine or
Do you have your
something. But
list in front of you right now?
I do, yeah.
Read
Yep.
it to us.
So one day I hiked on that 5 mile hike, worked out, and I had actually gotten 22,000 steps that day. And I made a delicious healthy meal. And then another time I worked, and then I was able to tackle this very like highly sensitive issue um, with a family member with a very clear mind, which was great. And it kind of came about like around 7 o'clock at night. And back in the day, 7 o'clock at night would not have been a good time for me to have a deep conversation with somebody.
Mhm.
But yeah, I had a clear mind and was able to feel and process those feelings. And then, oh, this was really cool. So after a weekend of not drinking, and I say drinking, and I mean like 2 glasses of wine, but
Yeah.
not having any alcohol, I woke up and went to like my Monday morning workout, and I got the best workout of my life. And I was like, what
Aw.
a difference. Like it was just great. And, I went from being like the heaviest and the slowest in these like intense workouts that I do. And I say intense, but they're like cross conditioning classes. They're just, that's what's fun for me.
Mm-hmm.
And, I went from to being one of the heaviest and the slowest to the fastest. And, just, I just love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah.
That's just a few of the little things that has happened for these past few weeks. I love
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Yeah, I love where your brain is. Like you're focusing on what you have and what you're able to do instead of what you're missing. And I think that's a big, like for all of you guys who are considering whether you join my program or not, or just taking on a challenge of stopping over drinking, let your brain go to the possibilities of what you're going to gain from this work instead of what you might miss. Because I promise you, like, you're not missing anything when you don't drink.
Right.
Except for hangovers, regret, puffiness, weight gain, and just feeling fucking stuck. Like that's what you're going to miss. But what is available to, if you think like what you can gain is so much more motivating for us to take changes. Like even for you, Amy, like at the very beginning, for you to know what it was going to be like 18 months later, like, could you even imagine?
So sorry, it cut out there for a moment. So could you go back to the question?
Oh, that's okay. So the question was like, for you to even know what your life could look like, was that even like on the horizon for you? Like the possibilities of where you are right now?
No, because I didn't even know what was possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, when you think of like, I'm going to stop over drinking, it's like it's such a foreign concept. Like how would one go about doing that? And it's just, it's such a holistic way of doing it too. It doesn't just focus on the over drinking. There's so many other aspects to it and reasons for why you're doing that. So, tackling all of those at once where, it might seem a little overwhelming, but it's broken up in a way that you're able to tackle it and able to get through it.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add? Any words of wisdom or inspiring things for people thinking about doing it, in it, just finishing a program?
Just do it. I mean, they're like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, God, I wish you would open it up to more of like, not even over drinking. You know what I mean? Because it's like, whatever issue I'm having, you take that brain model and you put it towards it. And you're like, boom, there it is. I teach my 7-year-old this stuff all the time. And like, in the beginning, he really resisted it. Like, I know, Mom, feel your feelings, like, whatever, and now he does it. And, it's great. We went to he's having really hard time with the whole homeschooling thing. And so I'm like, you know what, there's no shame in like going to talk to a little counselor or something. So we got him the counselor, and the counselor doesn't do the brain model, but he, it's similar in that, like, just, you got to feel your feelings. And I think the counselor, because you're, the parent is there during the session, and within it, I think the counselor was kind of looking at me like, how do you know all this stuff? Like, and so I'm able to, reiterate it at home too. And he's getting it. It's great. And, he doesn't roll his eyes at me every 5 minutes when I'm talking about it now.
Got some non-mom reinforcement there.
Yes. Yep.
So good.
Yeah. I tell him he's so lucky because I learned this at 37. Here he is 7 years old. I'm like, you're going to be so far ahead of me. This is great.
I know. That's what I think about my kids too. I'm like, they hate it when I say, let's go meditate and let's go process what you're feeling. Nothing's gone wrong.
Yeah.
They're just like, Mom, don't life coach me right now. Thank you later for it, kid.
Exactly.
This was lovely. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy to see you thriving and living, and your participation in the private Facebook group, and you're constantly inspiring people. So thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, it was an absolute honor to be on. I mean, part of my writing goals and things, and just being part of any podcast for me was like bucket list sort of stuff. And then so not only have I done it, now I'm doing it a second time. Like it's wonderful. Really? So
cool.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right, have a good one. Bye.
Holy heck. So good, right? Thank you so much, Amy, for coming on the podcast to share where you are 1 year later. I'm so proud of you. Thank you. All right, you guys, who's signing up to be like Amy? Click the link in the show notes. Apply to join me and stop over drinking and start living. Get in there. Get your applications in. Don't delay. Have the support that you want on hand through the holidays, through the start of 2021, and make this a permanent stop to your over drinking struggles. See you there. Bye.